Hi, this is Elwin Robinson, founder of Lionel Herbs and Complete Detox Academy, and welcome to this free training on setting New Year's goals that actually work. Now, I'm filming this and releasing this in New Year's, but of course, technically, if you're watching this in July and you want to take action on it, then it's equally valid, right? This is just for any time that you've decided to draw a line in the sand, which, you know, December the 31st is a really natural time, and say, right, I'm going to create new things in my life, right? There are certain things that I'm going to have, there are certain things I'm no longer going to have, and so if you're at that place, this training is for you. However, the focus on this is setting goals that work. And so we're not going to be focusing on kind of woo-woo, new agey, law of attraction kind of stuff, although I have a certain affection for that kind of thing. We're really going to focus on maximizing our chances of these New Year's goals actually coming true this year. Because the challenge is, of course, with New Year's resolutions, as they're often referred to, is that on January the 1st, we say, oh, you know, well, I guess I should try and lose some weight, and I guess I should do a fast because, you know, I'm feeling a bit toxic, and, you know, I guess I should be nicer to my family, or I guess I should, you know, try and get a promotion at work, or I should try and keep my job, or I should try and get more customers, or whatever it might be, right? So there are numerous problems with these kind of goals. And so we're going to look at a way that I found to be really successful to reach your goals. Now, who am I to teach you this? Well, I'm someone who probably a couple of years ago now has already achieved all the goals that they set out to do a few years ago, which they thought were completely impossible, right? So literally to explain this a little bit better, at one point I couldn't have imagined that my life would be as good as it is now. Now, I don't say that to show off or to boast or anything like that. I say that only to convey to you the power of setting goals in the way that I'm going to share with you here, right? So this is going to allow you to, if you really follow through with this in a dedicated way, and yes, this is not the easiest way in the world to set goals, but it is the most effective, then what you're going to find is that you're going to be in that same place that I am now, where you're going to be able to admit a little bit sheepishly that you're really happy with your life, and you're just going to, probably like me, feel the desire to share this with other people so that they can get a similar level of results. So here's the first thing. Most of the time, I think, when we set goals, we tend to too heavily focus myopically on one particular area. And this is something that I've definitely been guilty of as well. And so what I'd like to invite you to do, and the other side of the coin for the people who are very thorough, which often are my clients and customers I've noticed, is that they set too many goals. Maybe they set like 99 goals for every, like 12 different areas of their life. And so both of these are kind of a challenge, right? And so the way that I want to invite you to step out of that over complexity or that overly myopic focus is just to focus on creating a goal or more, but just one is probably ideal for each of the three main areas of your life, right? And so these are basically health, relationships, and career. And what you'll generally find is that any goal that you set is going to come into one of these three categories. But what we want to do is make sure that we don't become too imbalanced. And so that we set at least one goal, ideally maybe just one goal for each of these three areas, right? You can set more if you need to set more, of course. So we have a very specific goal for our health, we have a goal for our relationships, and for our career. So you may say, well, I'm not in a relationship, Elwin. Well, that's okay. Maybe you want to be in a relationship, so you might set a goal for that. Maybe you don't want to be in a relationship. In this case, relationships could be with your family, could be with your co-workers, could be with your friends, right? It could be that you maybe don't want a marriage partner or a relationship partner, but you might want more friends, and so you might set a goal for friends, or you might want more friendly friends, and you might set a goal for that, or whatever, right? So health, of course, would include the area of fitness as well, anything related to your own personal well-being, and then career. Now, if you're not in a place where you have a career, this might also relate to, so if you're not in a career because you're retired, then this might relate to any kind of contribution or philanthropic work that you do, any charitable work that you do, that would definitely come under this category. If you don't have a career yet because you are still studying, then this might relate to your studies, right? So you might have goals to get A's in your exams this year, or to graduate with honours, or whatever it might be in your particular case, right? So these are the three main areas to focus on. I would recommend that you have a goal in each of those areas, right? It's so easy. I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably focused on the health world, right? But the truth is that, you know, health stuff costs money. And so it's worth having a goal related to your career to be able to afford things. Now, not everything costs money. In fact, in my trainings, I often teach the most valuable things don't cost anything, except for maybe time and discipline. But nonetheless, some of it does, right? Nutrients going to come from somewhere a lot of the time. Support has got to come from somewhere a lot of the time. So we might need money for it. Ditto, if you're only focused on health, relationships are so important to health. The studies have shown again and again that those people who have a healthy community, those people who have healthy relationships are much more likely to live longer, less likely to suffer from chronic diseases, less likely to die if they are afflicted with a disease versus people who recover. So having healthy relationships is absolutely a crucial part of health as well. So would recommend a goal in each of these areas. Now, here's the thing, a lot of people's goals are so vague, well, not everything I'm going to outline here, that they're very unlikely to actually come true. And so if your whole kind of attitude towards this is, you know, I'm watching this, Elwin, because I haven't completely given up, but I've almost given up because I've done so many of these goal setting things and it never seems to work, or it doesn't work nearly often enough, and then I get disappointed, and then I kind of feel like giving up, and I get depressed, and I think I shouldn't have done it in the first place. If you can relate to that at all, then this is for you, because this is not the usual kind of namby-pamby goal setting. This is a kind of goal setting which I actually learned from management theory. So this is something related to getting real results in the real world. So here are the 6 different filters that we need to measure our goals through. So I'm going to give you an example of this. Let's say you had a health goal this year of I want to lose some weight, or I should lose some weight. That's the way people often say it, right? So I should lose some weight. So the first thing that you need to do as you filter your goal down is to look at it being more specific, right? So what's an example of this? So for instance, in terms of losing weight, well, what kind of weight do you want to lose, right? Maybe the kind of weight you want to lose is toxicity, right? A lot of people have between 10 and 20 pounds of waste stuck in their intestines that shouldn't even be there. So you could lose a lot of waste while doing a detoxing regime, but you wouldn't necessarily lose any fat, you know? Some people, what about if you got your wish because you were accidentally had some kind of major issue that made you not able to eat and you kind of muscles are wasting away? Would you consider that a success? Probably not. When people set goals, I try and tell them, do it as if you were doing it for a magic genie, right? You know the Aladdin's lamp kind of story? So you rub the lamp and it says you've got 3 magic wishes. But if you read those stories carefully, you also see that almost always the genie, or the whatever you call it, tries to catch the person out. So it gives them what they asked for, but not what they really wanted. And so that's our challenge here, is that, okay, we wouldn't say maybe the universe is kind of that malicious, but the point is still the same. The less specific we are, the more chance there is we're going to get something we didn't really want because we weren't specific enough, right? So probably rather than just losing weight, you might say you specifically want to lose toxicity, or you want to lose fat, right? So then that brings us to our next criteria, which is that the goal that we're looking for needs to be measurable. Measurable. Now, not all things are equally measurable. For instance, things in relationships often are. I'm going to tackle that in a minute, but let's look at our example first, right? So we start being specific. Okay, I don't just want to lose weight, I want to lose fat and toxins, right? For instance. So then the next thing we want to go into is, well, let's make it measurable. So let's say it's not just about I want to lose some body fat, it's I want to lose maybe 3 inches off my waist. Or I want to lose, 3 inches off my hips, or whatever it might be. It might be that you might have one of those scales which I recommend, which measure your body fat percentage, and you might say, okay, I want my body fat percentage to go from 25% to 20%. Maybe that's going to be my goal, right? Very measurable. And so whenever it is possible, some things are not as easily measured, unfortunately, right? We'll get into that in a second. But wherever it is possible to measure it, we definitely want to go for that option, right? Why? Because it allows us to remove the capacity for self-delusion, which scuppers most goals, right? So pretending to ourselves that we're already reaching our goals, that we've already reached our goals, pretending to ourselves that our goals don't matter, pretending to ourselves, and this is endless, right? And people do this all the time. People even, if their goal might be to reach a certain weight, they'll kind of fiddle with the scales and stuff like that. Ultimately, we can't absolutely guarantee that there's not going to be a bit of cheating, but we can at least guarantee that you need to cheat because you are at least specifically measuring, right? So making your goals measurable. Now, what if your health goal is having more energy, for instance? Or what if your relationship goal was to have a more loving relationship with your children, for instance, right? That's not very easily measurable, right? We can't measure bodily energy very easily. We can't measure love very easily or at all. Or can we? Right? Well, how could we make this measurable? So a measure of energy might be, for instance, that I don't need any, that I feel absolutely no desire for any stimulants to boost my energy. That might be a goal. Another example might be that I don't have an energy crash at any point during the day by a certain point, right? That might be the way that we measure energy. So we might not be able to literally measure energy, but we can measure it by its effects. And the same even with love, for instance, for your children, let's just say, right? So if right now you're in a position with your children where every time that you come into the room and you say hi to them, all they do is grunt at you and don't even look away from the TV, then maybe your measurement of love might just even be that, you know, when you've achieved your goal, when you come in and you say hello to them, they actually pause their computer game and they look over at you and say, hi, mum or dad, right? That might be it. That might be your measurement, that you know that they actually, you know, are expressing more love towards you or whatever. I mean, maybe it's a silly example, but the point is there must be something like that that you can measure. Next, your goal needs to be attainable. So what does that mean? It means that it needs to be possible, right? Now, if you're a Roger Bannister type of person and you want to achieve something that no one's ever achieved, then that's fair enough, but that's not really what we're talking about here. So the definition of attainable is that someone has ever done it before. And so the rule which I live my life by, which I highly encourage you to live your life by, is if any human being has ever managed it, I can manage it too, right? And so that's a good rule to go by. So for instance, if you are an 89-year-old woman, a goal for this year is probably not to get pregnant and have a baby, right? Because it's not attainable. No one's ever done that before, right? You can aim for that if you really want, but your chances of success are pretty limited, right? So we want to aim for attainable goals. That's how we get goals that actually work, right? Where you actually achieve them. They have to be attainable. And the way to measure that is simply, has anyone else ever done it? And if the answer is yes, then it's attainable, right? So if we look at our weight loss goal, for instance, we could say, I want to go from 20% to 2% body fat, and we might, within the next 3 months or something like that, and we might say, is that attainable? Is it actually possible? Is it desirable to get to 2% body fat? And we might find out that for a woman especially, that's absolutely not desirable. That'll be severely unhealthy, and so that's not an attainable goal. Well, it's not attainable and it's not desirable, and so we need to be aware of that. And we might modify that to 13%. That's like an optimal low level for a woman. Okay, then I'll aim to go from 20% to 13%, right? So something like that. Then the next thing we want is for it to be realistic, right? So now what's the distinction here, right? So we've really talked about it being attainable. The key to it being realistic is really that it feels possible to you, right? So this attainable thing is all about, has anyone else done it? This is all about looking at the world out there. But the realistic thing is about checking in with your heart, checking in with your gut and saying, is this really going to happen for me? And if you feel in your heart of heart that you're not going to be able to lose, for instance, 100 pounds by the end of the year, or you're not going to be able to get to 12% body fat by the end of the year or by whenever, and it just feels to you, you know what, I just feel like that's not really possible, then to set a goal for it anyway, you're actually creating that situation of disappointment and depression, right? You're literally creating it. If you set a goal for something that when you check in with yourself and ask yourself if it's realistic, what comes back to you is no, then it's self-sabotage, right? It really is. And so we have to then make it more something that feels real to us. Now, bear in mind, you want to ask yourself that question when you're in the correct mood, right? So there may be some moods where you get in where everything seems impossible and everything seems unrealistic. And so we do want to make sure that we check in with ourselves, maybe when we're not in the depths of apathy or despair or depression or something like that. But on the other hand, we want to check in with ourselves when we're feeling sober and when we're feeling level-headed, right? And we may say, you know what, getting down to 13% body fat is not going to be attainable for me because I know that I've got so much work to do. I'm really not going to be able to exercise very much. I'm not going to be able to cleanse very much. And I'm not going to be able to eat very well. And so it's probably not going to happen. And so I'll just aim for 16% because that does feel realistic for me given my current life situation. For instance, right? Now, not to say you shouldn't ultimately get to 13% if that's your ultimate goal, but you might decide for now that's not realistic and you want to do baby steps, right? A lot of this depends on your character, by the way. Some people, like myself, I think, just like to go the whole way, the whole hog, and they really immerse themselves in things. Some people, not so much, and they prefer one step at a time. Is there a better or worse way? No, it all depends on you. You know, when I check in myself with a big goal and I ask myself if it's realistic, I hear yes sometimes, right? But if you don't hear yes, then make it realistic for you. That's the key distinction here. The next distinction with your goals is to make them time bound, right? Now, what does bound mean? There's a boundary of time. So let's say it's the body fat thing. So my intent is to achieve 13% body fat by the 1st of June 2014. There you go, right? You've already checked in with yourself. Yes, it's specific. Yes, you can measure it. Yes, people have achieved it before. Yes, it feels realistic to you. And yes, you set a time right. So that is a key formula. Now, I've taken this from a management technique, as I say, but I'm going to add an extra one in here, which I think is also super important as well, and that's, is it exciting, right? Now, it's actually important to have this one last because if something excites you and then you kind of filter it through all these and you decide actually it's not possible, this can be kind of disappointing. But it's something, if you start off with, okay, is it realistic, time bound, etc., is it still exciting to you? So just imagine for a second that you do want to lose weight, and now imagine that you have achieved 13% body fat, and it's the 1st of June right now, and you're looking and your waist seems so much slimmer and flatter, and you can fit into those clothes so much more easily, and you imagine your skin also looking better because of all the exercise and the cleansing that you've been doing and all the rest of it. How does that feel, right? Are you excited by that? And I hope the answer to that is yes, right? But if the answer is actually no, actually I don't really want that, it's irrelevant to me, then don't go to all the effort, right? Think about a new goal, because it needs to be a goal that excites you. It needs to be a goal that you are passionate about, right? Just finished filming a video for elwinrobinson.com where I go through the 9 most important results when it comes to ultimate health. So if you're looking for some kind of inspiration, you might want to go there and check it out and see, oh, okay, so those are results that are really important to me. But whatever the results are which are really exciting to you are the results that you're going to get, right? So make sure that your goal fits into all of these, right? It's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic, it's time bound, and it's exciting. Now, all of that's cool, and once you've done that, you should have come up with an actual goal, right? And I would recommend an actual goal for each of these 3 areas. So you might have chosen that one for the health one, you might have chosen for the relationships one, that I am going to have a relationship, I'm going to be in a relationship with a man who is like this, or I'm going to be in a relationship with a woman who's like this, and this, or you might decide that I'm going to rekindle my friendship with this person and this person who I really enjoy but haven't made time for, or in my career that I'm gonna get this mark in these exams if you're a student, or I'm going to help this many people if you're working philanthropically, or I'm going to get this promotion by this time for this job, right? All this kind of thing, very specific. So what's the next thing to do? What do we do with these goals now we've got them? And by the way, I would highly recommend at this point, if you haven't created those goals, just pause the video right now and actually write those goals down, right? I would recommend doing one for each of those areas and just take like a minute to write it down and then a couple of minutes to go through each of these filters, and then come back and I'm going to show you what to do with those goals to actually make them come true. Okay, congratulations. I hope that you actually did pause the video, you did create those goals. Now you've created them and you've actually written them down, you've made a huge step. And just in and of itself, declaring something, clarifying it, writing it down is half the battle. So first of all, just give yourself a good pat on the back, congratulations, a high five. Yes, you've done it. That's awesome, right? But if you want to guarantee the success of these goals, rather than have it be like a distinct possibility, then you need to look at these 3 steps as well, right? And so I'm going to go through those with you now. So one of the reasons why people very frequently don't get successful with their goals is because they just forget all about them, right? So other than not clarifying it, assuming that they've done all that, one of the reasons why people don't get success with their goals is because they just forget all about them, right? Now, sometimes this is okay because it means the conscious mind lets go of it and the unconscious can get to work creating it. So that is a possibility, but a lot of the time, forgetting about it doesn't really help, right? And so another challenge that people get into, and it's a different challenge, but still related to this first point, is that they get too focused on the process, right? So let's say that you know, you decide that you're going to lose, you're going to get to this certain amount of body fat by this time, and then you look up more about exercise or nutrition or detoxing or whatever, right? And then you start getting into oh, I must start following this diet, oh, I must start following this exercise plan, and then before you know it, following the diet, following the exercise plan, doing the detox actually takes precedence, and you forget what the original goal was, right? And then suddenly you make a virtue out of following a diet, or you make a virtue out of doing an exercise regime. And the truth is that while these things are certainly good, the only reason you're doing them is to get a result, right? And so the key to success with goals, the key to guaranteeing success with goals, may happen anyway once you clarify, but the key to guaranteeing your success with goals is to focus on the result. So when should you focus on the result? Really, the answer is as often as possible, right? And so here are a few instances which are really ideal to guarantee a success of a particular goal. Focus on your result first thing in the morning. Focus on your result last thing at night. Focus on your result every time anything contradictory or distractory comes up into your worldview, right? So let's look at the contradiction distraction first. So for instance, if you start saying to yourself, oh, well, you know, if someone offers you do you want some cake with your tea? And you, oh, well, you know, it would be really nice to, that's a contradiction and a distraction, right? So then you want to think, I intend to have 13% body fat by 1st of June 2014. And that's like your psychic shield or armor against all temptation, all distraction, anything which is incongruent with your goal, right? So you have that, and that's something that you bring to mind. Now, the way I just described that is bringing it to mind with words, but the key thing with focus is not just to focus on the words, but really to focus on the sensations, the feelings, the colors, the visual experience, even the auditory experience of having achieved that goal, right? So the thing to focus on every morning, first thing in the morning, after you wake up, and last thing at night before you go to sleep, is to say to yourself, ideally, yes, out loud, your intent, and then just to close your eyes, relax, breathe, and imagine yourself already there. This is really crucial, right? Imagine yourself at the result. So this may be, you know, you putting a tape measure and seeing that it's 30. This may be you fitting into that dress that you want to fit into. This may be you eating the foods that you know are good for you to eat joyfully and happily. This may be you dancing and feeling free well, because you have a lack of any negative body image because you're so happy with the way your body looks now. So whatever it is, right? Whatever it is for you, which is an exciting kind of image, right? That's what you really want to be focused on. So focus on the result, visualize it, feel it, imagine that you're actually there, right? As often as you can throughout the day, especially to push away any distractions, any contradictions, any temptations, and then first thing in the morning, last thing at night. I did say that it wasn't the easiest way in the world, didn't I? But I also said it's the way to guarantee results, and this is really it. So the next step is also to review, right? So to review. So in the case of the body fat, now this may not be something that changes every day. So the frequency of the review is going to depend on what it is. Maybe a weekly review, for instance. Maybe once a week you get on your scales and you see how much your weight has changed or how much your body fat percentage has changed, right? And so you're reviewing as you go along. So yes, you want to focus on the result and you want to do that frequently, right? So at least twice a day. But your review is going to be less frequent, but it's still going to be there. So what's the point of the review? The review is really the thing that allows for course correction. right? So this is why I said you need to be committed to the result, not the process. Because let's say, for instance, that you decided to lose this body fat and you decide to do it by exercise, right? And then you were exercising hard and you find a month later your body fat percentage is still exactly the same. So the value of the review is it's telling you, you know what you're doing is not working to get the result that you want. However, that doesn't mean that you should abandon the result. That just means you should abandon, or maybe not just use, the method that you're using, right? So you may carry on exercising, but you may also add a detoxification regime in there. You may also add a nutrition regime in there, right? You may add a supplementation regime. You may add a herbal regime. You may add all kinds of things. You may remove things, right? You may remove stress of work. You may, the more stressful aspects of your work. You may remove the temptation of an unsupportive environment, which we'll look at in a minute. So it's about reviewing to see where you're at so that you can course correct and say either, yes, I am achieving my goal at the correct rate and that's great, or to go, you know what, I'm not getting there at all, or I'm not getting there as quickly as I need to be, so I'm going to add something, or I'm going to remove something appropriate to get to my goal, to get to my result, right? So the review is very important. It does depend on what your goal is as to how frequently you would review, but I think generally every week, sometimes even every month, if it's a long-term goal, like a yearly goal, is a really good time to review, and occasionally even every day, right? If it is something which is rapidly changing, then something that you can review every day, then that's perfectly reasonable as well. Of course, in the case of education, for instance, this is something that comes up quite often, right? So you get tests maybe throughout the year, and so that gives you frequent reviews. But say in a career, we don't get that as often, right? Maybe you have like an annual review or even a quarterly review. If you're your own boss or something like that, if you're the head, then no one's ever reviewing you. So you need to be reviewing yourself, right? And that's true really whether you have anyone else review you or not. You also need to be reviewing yourself and seeing how well you're moving towards your goal. And then the last step on this whole process is to get support, right? So the kind of person who goes through all these steps that I'm talking about and focuses on the result and all the rest of it is usually a fairly individualistic kind of person, right? To even have that sense to achieve something maybe above and beyond what everyone else around them is doing, and so that's awesome. But the challenge of being too individualistic is trying to do everything yourself, which is definitely something that I have been guilty of, and it's something which really I didn't make. In fact, I made a tragic lack of progress with my health for a couple of years, even when I was really committed, I was really focused on the result, etc., etc., because I just I refused to get support. As soon as I started getting support, everything started working for me. So be willing to get support of various different kinds. So what could support be? Support could be definitely the guidance of someone who has been there before, right? So in terms of if you want to reduce your body fat, you might want the guidance of a coach or a mentor or someone like that to give you a strategy which is helpful, right? You might go to a teacher, you might read books, you might whatever, right? So that's a level of support. But another level of support is peer support, right? So having a group of people around you. One of the things that people enjoy most about my coaching programs like Complete Detox Academy is not just my help, but not just my help, my guidance, but also the help of everyone else who's signed up with them, and that collective momentum and that peer group of people around you who are all aiming for the same thing and who you can relate to, and you can chat with them, and you can share your successes, and you can share your struggles, and you can help and support each other. That's hugely powerful, right? So there's peer support as well. There's also get a supportive environment, right? As much as humanly possible. And I say it that way because I know that it's not always possible to do completely, but as much as you possibly can to get an environment that supports you, to create an environment that supports you, right? So if you're trying to lose weight and part of that is to not eat certain things, then make sure those things aren't lying around, right? If you're trying to exercise, for instance, as part of your thing to lose weight, then make sure that you join a gym, right? And make sure that you make plans to, be at the gym. Maybe pick a gym that's between work and home, right? So it's very hard to avoid driving past it, right? Or maybe you might have exercise equipment in your home, in which case, don't hide it, have it center of attention, have it there supporting you, right? Ditto for, if you want to eat more superfoods and less packaged foods, for instance, then don't have the superfoods like at the top back of the cupboard, have the superfoods in primary position.